Welcome to BARI Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
Can you believe it's actually like week 42 of BARI Banter? So like in like 10 weeks time.
We've been doing it for a year.
Almost a year, I know. Something I really appreciated this morning is because obviously we keep getting a lot of different guests on, and it makes me not only, like I'm constantly learning stuff, not only just about weight loss surgery, but about the human body. Like this morning with the guest that we got on today, I started looking into like ghrelin and what was the other one? Leptin, which, you know, to kind of understand how those hormones work and relate to your body and obesity and different things like that. And I think that's one thing I'm really enjoying about doing this podcast is it's making me ask questions and like Google stuff. Like I spent all morning this morning trying to understand like these hormones and how, because like with ghrelin, I was kind of like, oh yeah, but ghrelin, it gets taken away. But like what made ghrelin? Like why did you have ghrelin in there? And it's not a case of like ghrelin, it's like a little lump that they just take out and you no longer get it. It's like literally a hormone. So like, because they take away large, like majority of your stomach, you still have a small amount of ghrelin there. It's just the main part of the stomach that the cells that develop the ghrelin are no longer there. So like,
so the ghrelin is grown is the wrong word, but produced in the
cells.
cells of your stomach, and because you're chopping away most of that part of the stomach, your ghrelin is significantly reduced. But so straight after surgery, you don't feel hungry because the majority of that ghrelin production has been reduced.
And because of your leptin. So your leptin is kind of like when skinny people don't have any issues with weight. They have like, because we all have leptin in our bloodstream, and that is kind of like an appetite suppressant. So like with some people, like you develop I developed a tolerance to not feeling the effects of it. And then obviously ghrelin had control over me to a degree. So like I was always hungry and always, because it was really interesting because today's guest, which we will introduce now, is someone who kind of talks about, and we won't go too far into it, that she was still hungry after surgery. So that was made me go, oh, like how is that possible? Like I thought they took the ghrelin out, and then I started looking into like ghrelin, what ghrelin is, and it's like,
and then we were looking into how ghrelin is affected when bypass versus sleeve as well, because obviously
they don't take the stomach out with bypass.
So with the bypass, do you still have all of your ghrelin function? That's something that I'll have to look into.
Yeah.
more.
So now, like on the knowledge level of like ghrelin and leptin, I'm at about a kindergarten level. So
you know how to pronounce the words.
Would I start to ask you? But anyway, we should get our guest in because she's the one that enlightened this educational process this morning. So we might as well introduce her and delve a little bit more into it with her, I reckon.
All right. So our guest today, we've got from all the way across the ditch in New Zealand. She was sleeved back in February of 2020. Her heaviest weight was 131 kilos, and she's since going under the knife. She's lost 37 kilos. Here to talk to us about her experience is Brenda, also known as Brenda's Joy on Instagram. Hey, Brenda. Welcome.
You gotta work. We don't see actions in the audio. You gotta hey, how are you? Thanks for joining us from across the ditch. So you did enlighten that bit of education this morning, because you said on a few occasions that you didn't you still felt hungry after surgery.
Yeah, I did, and I was annoyed about that. And everyone kept saying it's dead hunger, but I could hear, people at work could hear my stomach rumbling in meetings and stuff.
Wow.
Like, it wasn't just dead hunger, it was actual, real hunger. So yeah, that was just a thing I had sort of from right early on, and it's I'm just got used to that, I guess. Right back at the beginning, I would just sort of go to bed with my stomach rumbling. So, I just sort of got used to living with hunger. And I thought at the time, oh, well, I'll be okay later because everybody says the appetite comes back. Maybe a year later, I thought, well, I'll be fine because I'm used to this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's surprising because it is something I hear quite often, and I go, oh, like before I've kind of just gone, oh, well, like that can't be because they take the ghrelin out, but it very much can be, still having that hunger, which is a huge tool in the whole bariatric surgery side of things to not have that hunger there, because your leptin's being stepped up, so it's taking control, suppressing your appetite. You're no longer hungry, which along with eating lesser food, kind of the two big contributors to people losing the weight in the first year. So you obviously not having the assistance of, the lack of eating, like the lack of hunger. How did you find that? Did you still find yourself eating more and pushing the limits of what you could eat because you were feeling that hunger?
No, so I felt hungry, but I still got full really quickly.
Yeah.
So I was just like anyone else. I could only eat like a little plate full, and I'd get full really fast. But I would just some people would say, I eat my little meal and then I don't feel hungry all day, and I have to remind myself to eat. Mine wasn't like that. Mine would be like within an hour I was hungry again.
And was it the same? Was it the same feeling of hunger between post-surgery and after surgery? Did it feel the same?
Yeah, just like googly stomach, and you can hear your stomach rumbling.
Yeah, because I get a lot of head hunger, and like that's why I always put, when people said they were still hungry after surgery, down to it's probably just head hunger, because I know I suffered with that a lot. But then like looking into it today, it's very much there is that, it may not be head hunger. It just means your leptin may not be as active as your ghrelin. So it's like, your ghrelin may still be holding a certain amount of control. Like, I don't know. I don't understand it completely, and I'll continue to watch more videos to try and understand it, but it's just funny how there are a large percentage of people that still feel hunger after bariatric surgery, which I didn't think was a thing, but it actually is.
Because you also hear quite a lot as well, like the week or so after surgery, people are like, I have this like dull pain, and it's consistently there, and it's sore. Like I feel like the surgery, like I feel like I'm bruised or something like that. Like it's just a dull aching pain, almost like a stitch. And that is the reason why I asked you if it felt different pre and post surgery, is because a lot of the time it's learning what your new hungry feels like as well. Because like for people these days, like for people after surgery, you don't necessarily feel hungry the same way. Like as you were saying before, Brenda, like the gurgling, like empty feeling, you don't necessarily feel that same hunger after surgery. It is just sort of like a dull pain. So that's why I asked you that question, just to sort of see if it still felt the same after surgery as what it did before surgery.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like head hunger for me would be more, I just want to eat something, but my stomach's not rumbling, like that's more like, it's not so much for me. Hunger, it's more like just wanting to eat something when you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
But this is actually like your stomach's rumbling. So yeah, I don't know. I just have to sort of live. It's annoying. And now that I'm further down the track, it's probably more like half an hour after a meal I feel a bit hungry, because I mean the reason I lost so much weight so fast is because there's lots of reasons, but it's probably the most obvious one is that your meals are so much smaller. But then half an hour later when you're feeling hungry, it's because actually that meal probably wasn't enough for my body.
Yeah.
Because I'm like my body probably needs more food than that, but my stomach can't contain more food than that, so that's why it quickly moves through. But obviously my body, when I say it needs more food to not feel hungry, but it doesn't need more food to maintain my weight, because obviously if I eat more, I'm going to put on weight. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's annoying because I always thought that I should be able to eat more than a small person because I'm tall, but I actually can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On your form that you filled out prior to coming on, you mentioned on a few occasions that you found like this whole process not a challenge. Like you found it quite simple. Has this been the case since the very start for you? Like you just have felt like it's just been very effortless? Like have you not found that there's been any challenges that has arise because of this for you?
Yeah, I guess because I'm really sort of positive. It's sort of my vibe.
Yeah.
And I'm also quite old, and I've tried 30 odd years of diet, and I'm so I'm in the weight loss speaker community. Everybody seems to say, "Oh, it's so hard, it's so hard, it's so hard." But when you've been trying for 30 to 35 years to lose weight, and then you have the surgery, and less than a year later you're so much smaller. Big picture for me, it was a piece of cake compared to all the other stuff I've done.
Yeah.
So it's almost like choosing your heart. Yeah, choosing your heart.
Sorry?
Like I think you choosing your heart. Yeah. So like because you have so much to compare it to, you're kind of looking at it and going, oh well, compared to past the past, this is, easier compared to like, 30 years of dieting and you're constantly losing and gaining weight. You're looking at it and just going, but really in the scale of things, it's really, which is pretty accurate really, if you think about it.
And I guess that's where people get the whole, it's the easy way out side of thing, because they go, if you go straight to surgery and you haven't, like, if Brenda, you hadn't tried 30 plus years of dieting and you went straight to surgery, then that's where people get the misconception of it's the easy way out. But it definitely isn't an easy process, nor is spending 30 years yo-yo dieting. That's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
That's it. You get
I thought it was really, really, really hard. And I get that for some people it is. Like, I know there are people that, have complications, and I've talked to people who've had terrible times, and I'm totally empathise. But for people like me that sort of just did the thing, stuck to the plan and lost weight, if it was so hard, we wouldn't do it,
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
I think, I take my hat off to the people who are really honest and open about how hard it's been, because I think that people need to hear that it can be really hard. But probably my thing is saying, well, it's not like this for everyone, because I sort of feel like if I'd gone on Instagram before I had my surgery and read all the people saying how hard it was, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, true.
And the reason I did it is because I read Simone Anderson's book, and she said, oh, I did this and this and this, and I was like, wait,
Yeah.
And I was really quite just like, oh wow, that's to hear. But if I'd heard, and I also talked to a couple of people who I knew who'd had it, and they were really, really positive as well. And I didn't really come onto Instagram until after my surgery. And it might have put me off having it.
Yeah, well, I think that's something I've been criticised before about maybe showing the I guess the positives more than the negatives on my Instagram. Like I have been criticised for that in the past. But I think, like kind of what you're saying, I've found it not easy. It's had its challenges, but it's almost like getting punched in your face for 30 years and then someone punched you in the stomach and you're kind of like, oh, that's easy. That was not as bad as getting punched in the face. You know what I mean? So it all comes down to comparables. Like it's like if you're willing to compare today versus yesterday, you're obviously going to, maybe criticize, the little things rather than comparing it to like the last 2,000 days, whatever it is. You're comparing it to previous experiences. So it's the same with me. Like I have been up and down with weight and constantly struggled with my weight and different things that come along with it. So then when I had bariatric surgery and I transitioned, not easily transitioned, but I made these changes, it seemed to happen a lot more effortlessly. So for me, I would rather put that across than sit there and dwell over the little negative things that you face on a day-to-day basis, which it sounds like similar to where you're going with it is, you're not dwelling on the little things and the little challenges.
Yeah, so, and I'm not, and that doesn't make me or you being fake, because that's actually our choice. So I went into surgery. I had 2 really rough days after. I came out of surgery with a migraine. My sister was with me, and she goes, she said I was really funny when I came out. I was like, oh. So I had 2 really, really bad days. I felt terrible. And I was over in Thailand. And then I honestly started feeling better, like really quickly. By day 5, I was feeling really good. We were sitting around Bangkok and our tuk-tuk and doing all these cool touristy things. I had one day I ate a bit much and I threw up, and that wasn't very nice. But honestly, like in the last year and a bit since I've had it, I've probably had that 3 times. I've sort of like just been, a little bit sick after. But yeah, I honestly don't have a whole lot of stories of like it just happened really easy. I just sort of stuck to the plan. It was during lockdown. I was at home. I was unemployed most of last year. So I was able to sort of make my meals at home and all that. I started walking sort of after I'd lost most of my weight, which I still do. I've still got about 9 kg to go, and I guess it's harder now because I've probably maintained now for about 6 months, and if I really knocked it down, I could lose another 9 kg, and I know I'm going to have to work really hard for that.
Yep.
But I'm quite sort of happy how I am now, and my doctor said she wouldn't mind if I stayed how I am now, but she said to me, you need to watch that you don't slowly put it back on.
Yeah.
And all that. tell you a horrific story apart from what I've just said. Like, that's as bad as it's been.
I think also it comes down to mindset as well, though. Like all three of us are quite positive people, and we going into surgery, I think, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you go into surgery knowing that you've got to follow the plan, stick to the plan, make changes. Like, unless you're going to do that, you probably will find it's quite a hard transition from pre to post surgery, because if you're not willing to actually change a little bit, then it will be quite a hard process.
Yeah, I feel like this process is a little bit like a roller coaster. You get on it. There's no point getting to the top of the peak and dwelling over the peak you just came up. Like, sometimes you're on the roller coaster. It's not like you can be like, I changed my mind, put it back in. I really don't like vomiting after surgery. Or I really don't. You've got to just ride the wave of the roller coaster, and you can either sit there and criticize every lump that comes with it, or you can just be like, this is the process. It is what it is now. And I feel like that's kind of that feels like how I've approached this process, and it feels like also how Brenda's kind of approached it. You're on this journey, you're on this process, and you just got to ride it.
Just got to roll with it. Yeah, you mentioned before that you were in.
It's just how I am. Yeah, I'm sort of like that with everything. Like, I just sort of like to look at the glass half full, and sort of that's how. Doesn't mean I don't have problems, That just means that I'm just I don't know, it's just who I am. But I think it's, I don't know. I think it's like I did write. I remember writing a post one day. I was feeling a bit bummed out because I didn't think I'd put on weight and I didn't deserve to or something. And within half an hour of putting it on, I was like, I'm fine now. And there was one other time I was one, and literally by the time I finished typing, I was like, garbage, I don't even feel like this now, so I just deleted it.
Yeah. You just always need to write it out.
You just need to let it go.
You just need to vent it out and put it down on paper.
Yeah, I get annoyed when I see people saying how, everyone's fake. Instagram life, it's all fake. So it's not fake. This is actually who I am. So
yeah, it's a little bit of a highlight reel, and anyone that sits there, and even the people that put a negative spin on things, sometimes will exaggerate the negative things to get a certain reaction out of people. So I think at the end of the day, they're words, they're pictures. You take away from it what you want to take away from it. Me, more than likely, I don't want to sit there each morning and write a post. Like, I don't really do it much these days, but I used to sit there and write a post every morning, and I don't want to start the day off with negative thoughts. You want to sit there and you want to put something down on paper and look at the positives of yesterday rather than the negatives. So,
But you mentioned before that you had your surgery over in Thailand. Talk us through Thailand. Like, talk us through surgery day. How was that over being in a different country and all that sort of thing? Talk us through that.
Yes. So I started researching it. And I stumbled on a thing about destination beauty just online. And then it said, join our Facebook page, so I did. And then two people that I'd known for about 30 years went, hi Brenda, and they were in the Facebook group.
Oh, wow.
And one of them was about to have surgery and one had had surgery. And she goes, give me a call, I'll tell you all about it. I've lost all this weight. And it was amazing over there. And so I rang her and I chatted to her, and she said, honestly, it's so... the care you get's amazing, the place to stay is amazing. I had a great holiday, 100% recommend it. So I did it. I took my sister and she got her teeth done while we were over there. And we had such a good holiday. It was so much fun. But 100% I wouldn't have risked, you're sort of signing up to this online thing, you're spending this money off, and you don't know whether it's for real or not. But it's because I knew these two people that I had the confidence to do it. So that's why I was interested, they can talk to me, I'll tell you all about it. It's legit, it's a really amazing, a company that organises all sorts of surgery, not just weight loss surgery. They work with this really amazing, really good private hospital in Bangkok, and you stay in this beautiful apartment, they pick you up in the van and take you to the hospital, and it's really, really good.
So it's like a holiday, but with the bonus of getting a surgery at the same time.
And it's cheaper than doing it in New Zealand. Plus, you're in hospital 5 nights, and I had really high blood pressure, so they're checking me every once an hour, every hour, and the nurses are so lovely. They sort of stroke the arm while they're doing blood pressure.
Wow.
So it's not just about the money; it's also really amazing care. I highly recommend it. Obviously, you can't really do it at the moment, but So by the time you leave the hospital, you've been, 5 days after surgery, but they want you to stick around for a while so they can, because they want to sort of check on you.
Yep.
So then you have another 10 days, and I think it's like 2 nights before, 5 in hospital, and the rest after. You're there for 15 nights. And during that time, I felt great. So we were off first sightseeing, and all the other ladies that had it done at the same time as me, they were all good. So we were all sitting around having a book. So you get quite a bit of more bang for your buck. I was able to pay for my sister to come, to pay off a couple of bills I had some spending money, have a really good holiday. I think about 20 grand, whereas I think surgery is about 14.5 grand. Total I spent 20. In New Zealand, I think just for sleeve it's a little bit more than that.
It's one of those things because, like, in Australia and New Zealand, you have the Thai, like the destination beauty thing. In America, they go to Mexico, and I think that's kind of what scarred me a little bit from it. Is there seems to be a lot of horror stories that come out of Mexico. Have you, like that latest, there was someone that died getting it in Mexico and stuff like that. And I think that plays a little bit of a part for me of why I wouldn't go abroad. And like, I've seen some amazing results from it. But in America, there's been like, I think there was one like 2 years ago where someone died in Mexico having bariatric surgery. And then there's one just the other week.
Recently,
a lady had complications and died in Mexico as well. So like for me, I look at that and go, oh, no, I'll stay home, thanks. Like I'll stay in Australia because unfortunately, it's cases like that. It's like one out of how many million, like I don't know how many people have bariatric surgery that kind of for me scarred a little bit.
Yeah, but there's been cases over, like there was one not too long ago as well that there was somebody in America who passed away as well during surgery. Was that not that lady?
I think that was that lady.
It was a man, and he was quite well known in the American community, and everybody, it was really sad to watch as well. Like everybody, was posting on his Instagram because he took a photo of him going into surgery, and heaps of people were like, "Oh, good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck," and then everyone was like, "Mate, you okay? Like, where are you?" And then he just sort of essentially disappeared from social media. So, it happens in Australia too. It's just it's not really talked about.
It's like my surgeon had got something wrong, and he has a 0.001 or something rate of complications. Like he's I mean, I'm really conscious she's an amazing time, so I guess it's just. Yeah. I mean, there's always a risk.
There's always a risk.
Yeah, and I think it is. So we all go into it thinking we're going to be that 0.001%. Like I know I laid on the table prior to surgery, be like, oh my god, like they haven't had any issues for so long. It's about to happen.
Well, you hear of people writing letters to their kids before they go in, just in case they don't make it out on the other side. And
this was your first surgery, wasn't it? Like, is this the first time you went under?
Yeah. So when we went into the hospital, so you spend a whole day in there having sex before you go in to have your surgery. And they do a thing where they put a camera down into your stomach.
An endoscopy?
And they are really thorough, like they test everything, like, and they do all that. And they send you to do all the stuff to take home to your doctor. But they put you to sleep for that. So that was my first time I've been put to sleep. So that was my little
warm up.
My first time doing that. But it was so different than I thought. I just didn't quite know what to expect, but I've never had surgery in my life, so it was a first.
And surgery,
and at least they're not cutting you open. So
and surgery day went all pretty smoothly for you. Like there was no, like when you woke up, did you have the gas effects and stuff, or was it all pretty?
Really get the gas, that pain, and I've heard about that. I didn't really get that. Surgery was in the evening, and I remember coming out and being wheeled back into my room, and I was sort of going, my sister said I was really funny. I was saying, I was sort of a little bit freaked out at that point, but I calmed down, like, there was a couple of days where I think I was still having a migraine. Like, they were trying to give me, inject Panadol because they couldn't give me anything to drink to eat, I couldn't swallow. So that, and it wasn't working. So by the time I got through, I think it was the third day, and they actually gave me some oral pills to take, and it went away in half an hour, and then I was fine. I was walking around going, I feel better. But I think that's the reason I felt so because my head was just pounding, and I felt like I was going to buckle this one. You're trying to you walk, and you just, but it was honestly 2 days of my life. It's worth it.
Yeah, totally.
So I just wanted to ask you as well, with the like sort of post surgery. So you're in Thailand. Did you go through the same sort of process as what we do in New Zealand and Australia, where you had the liquid, the puree, and the soft food, or was it a little bit different for you?
Yeah, it's slightly different. So the pre-op diet, you don't have to do OptiFast. They say to you have less, keep the sugar down, your fat down, and your sugar, fat, and carbs down. So I just made myself like a diet. I had a green smoothie for breakfast, and I had a salad and chicken for lunch. And I did this thing I did it for 3 weeks. I only had to do it for 2. I did it for 3. But by the time I got to surgery, I'd actually lost 6.5 kilos already.
Oh, wow.
So my weight, I count it from, I know most people count it from surgery day, but I count it from there because I figure I lost that weight and I'm going to count it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then after, so you do that up to surgery, and I was determined to stick to it because I heard that if your liver hasn't shrunk enough, they can't operate, and I wasn't going to risk that. And then after surgery, I think they do 1 day water, 1 day broth, which is like chicken with, like water with a sort of chicken waves over it, like real. And then I think by the third day you're having soft foods. I think it was like some scrambled egg, and then the next that might have been like fish or something like that. It's different. Like you don't have to do like the 2, because you guys do like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or.
Yeah, it's pretty much about like 8 weeks before you're back to sort of eating normal foods. Because I know, like for my surgeon, it was 1 week of fluids after surgery, and then you do 3 weeks of puree, and then 3 weeks of soft food before you get back to.
And speaking of which, okay, a little bit of a sidetrack, but I was after watching that stuff this morning about ghrelin and stuff like that. I actually saw because I always wondered, like, why do we do fluids and stuff? Is it to stop splitting and so on and so forth? But it's actually like, so there's a pipe, I can't remember the name of it, that's swollen after surgery, which decreases the sizing of the tubing. And that's why you have to do fluids, puree, and wean yourself back in. Because it's so swollen, you can get food and stuff
stuck
jammed quite easily into it. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So it's not a case of like, your sleeve popping or anything like that. It was literally because this pipe is swollen, and over the 8-week process, obviously it expands and you can gradually go back to
more food into it.
Total sidetrack, but I thought that was really
I
interesting.
guess that would be similar to the band as well, because the band has got the restriction as well, so that's why. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I heard that too about how by the time I came out of hospital, with their program, we were just eating, protein first and like eating normal, but having these little tiny bowls of food. And I heard somewhere too that your stomach swells, and because there's always that thing about can you stretch it? I don't know the answer. Like some people say you can, some people say you can't.
Oh,
so
with
I don't
the
know.
sleeve, with the actual sleeve pouch itself, because it's not made up of. Part of your stomach is actually made of an elastic. Like it can stretch a lot, and that's the part they take away. So the sleeve we're left with is actually quite firm and doesn't have that stretchy capabilities. Wow, English, Shannon. But you can build, and that's like kind of what we talk about all the time. You build a tolerance to the discomfort feeling. It's the same as like over time when you stretch your stomach and you stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch, and then your stomach's always the same size. It can just stretch more.
But it's also sort of like if you imagine an elastic band. When you first have an elastic band, it's only got a certain amount of pull to it. But over time, the more you pull and stretch, it's going to eventually lose how much it can come back in. And that's sort of the way that my surgeon explained it to me, was that they cut away the part that has that stretchiness to it, but over time you will eventually, as Shannon was saying, you'll push through that discomfort of being full, and you'll slowly be able to look. Very rarely will you be able to push it all the way back out to where it used to be, but you can definitely get more food in, and you'll slowly start to expand the stomach again.
Yeah, so I think that's where it says it's really important to kind of listen to that feeling of full and trying to navigate. Because like I still know I push that feeling of full every now and then, but it's like listening to that, because that is kind of your body's way of saying, that's enough. Like, even though like sometimes you need to have more fuel and different things like that, it's kind of, if you want to keep your sleeve in the best form possible, not pushing that full past that point of full, like to the uncomfortable on an often occurrence.
It hurts, hey? If you get too full, it hurts.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to?
Yeah.
If it, because that's what I noticed with, this is the thing I have to watch now. I guess it's the same for everybody. is, you know, they talk about slider food.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So if I, like even like now, if I sat down and ate chicken and a salad, like I get full, anything to do with protein, I just get full so quick. That's why they say protein first. But I'm sometimes freaks me out how much ice cream I could eat, or popcorn, or anything, any lollies, or, you know, that sort of stuff. So, I mean, the reason, you know, I think the second thing that helps me lose weight so far, I don't, the things were smaller portions, but the next big one was sugar. Like I cut refined sugar right out, and I would have just say maple syrup, like not having white sugar.
Yeah.
And not eating after dinner, and drinking more water, and also tracking. I'm a big tracker. So when I did all those things last year, I lost weight really easily. But now I probably am just maintaining my weight because I'm not religiously doing all those things.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of eating enough to stay the same, but not to go down anymore.
Yeah. The question I like to ask people is, if you were to reverse your plumbing today, like back to pre-surgery, how do you feel you would go? Like, do you feel like you'd be able to maintain with the changes you've made, or do you feel like it's the food restriction that's holding you where you are?
I think it's helping me because because I do get full quicker, but I am very aware that I need to curb my. I'm still a sugar addict. Like I know that. And my doctor said to me the other day, she goes, "You've done so well," because I'm really proud of myself because I used to lose weight and then put it back on.
Yeah.
Like up and down, up and down, up and down. So the fact that I've lost, you know, all this weight and I haven't put it all back on, I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. And that's something to be proud of as well. You should be proud.
Yeah. So I'm within I have put on a couple of kilos, but I haven't put on a lot. But that's over 6 months, so that's pretty good. But she said to me, I don't want to be unkind, but I've got other clients who were like you, and then 2 years on, they just slowly started putting it on. And I said, how did they put it on? Did their stomach stretch, or were they eating more? And she said, no, it's just the snacking.
Yeah.
So all it is like a biscuit here, an ice cream here, you know, little bits here and there, which last year I would have just said, if someone offered me a cookie, I would have said no. Now I'll take the cookie.
Yeah.
I'm getting away with it at the moment because I'm maintaining. But and long term, if I just wanted to stay this way, I could probably have a cookie every day, and that's probably fine. And that's up to me whether I want to stay like this or I want to lose more. But I am also just aware and more mindful of I need to just curb that little sugar thing again.
Would you say that was your addiction prior to surgery? Like, would you say you're a sugar addict?
Yeah. So when I did I listened to this podcast, the Weight Loss Video podcast. There's an American lady, she still does it, but and she had a guest on she was actually a doctor, and she had been overweight herself, and I think she'd had surgery herself. So, and she talked about sugar addiction, and she said if you stop eating sugar, and after about a month, the whole sort of like drive to, you know, what can I eat disappears, you were probably addicted to sugar. So I found that within 2 weeks of my pre-op diet, that whole sort of like, I just feel like something sweet, you know, that little, I just felt a little something, it had just gone.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I was definitely a sugar addict. But that's sort of back a bit now. Not as bad as it was, but I'm very aware that it's still, it's still there. It's like if you're an alcoholic and you had a little bit of alcohol, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
it's funny because the video that Shan was watching before your episode, they were talking about how sugar is actually, it releases the same chemicals in your brain as what like alcohol and heroin and cocaine and all that sort of thing would. So like a sugar addiction is just as real as what a drug addiction is. And a lot of people kind of like, people frown upon, you know, people who are addicted to heroin and people who are addicted to like cocaine and all that sort of thing. But people don't like, bat an eye at somebody who, like, they don't see sugar as an actual addiction.
I feel like it's a very common thing these days, especially because a lot of foods have sweeteners and sugars, and like we're kind of addicted to that whole sweeter side of
But
life.
that's what it said that in that video.
Yeah.
It said that consumers now purposely put in fats and carbohydrates and sugars because they know that the human brain is addicted to it. So therefore they're going to sell more. So because we become addicted to those things.
And that was like the other thing. It was showing like a brain and like how it integrates itself into the wiring of a brain. So it's almost like you, as much as you may, like we have bariatric surgery and we lose the weight and we feel like we're getting on top of it, that wiring's still there. And it's all about like, I guess, acknowledging it that it's there, and then understanding like kind of what you're saying, like I can have one cookie a day. But I think for you being like a cookie a day, you got to watch when it goes from one cookie a day to 2 cookies a day, and then you start justifying 2 cookies a day. And I think that's all, you know what it's like in the past, and I know personally in the past, it never happens overnight. Like, you know, when it comes to like regaining weight, it was never like, oh, I lost my weight, had a hot dog, put it all back on. It was like over the next course of a year, when you're enjoying the perks of, you know, feeling fitter and healthier, you start to justify that 1 cookie, 2 cookie, 3 cookie. And then before you know it, you're back to a whole pack of cookies and you're still justifying that. And you're like, oh, well, here, I'm back here now. You know, the harm's done. You know, nothing's lost from this.
I was talking to a colleague at work about this yesterday, because in our tea room, we've got like 5 like mason jars, and one of them's got dried dates. One of them's got like nuts and stuff. Then there's licorice, pretzels, and then she's recently started bringing in bags of Haribo lollies. And I said to somebody the other day, I said, I don't want lollies until I see them. And once I see them, every single time I go into that tea room, I'll grab 3. Every single time it's 3. But then because I know that they're in that tea room, I purposely go into the tea room and get 3. And in my brain, I'm like, yeah, but you're only eating 3 at a time. 3 at a time, 10 times over the course of an 8-hour shift. That's a lot. Like, that's almost like a whole bag of lollies. You know what I mean?
If you
like,
sit down in one sitting with all those lollies you ate throughout the day, you wouldn't eat all those lollies.
Yeah.
But like breaking it up, it's almost like reverse atomic habits.
Yeah.
It's like you are, like, as much as you can get really good positive effects from small atomic habits that get you to an end goal, it can work in reverse, where you almost develop like small atomic habits which have a negative goal at the end of it.
Which is exactly what that was. Like, I
I
have 3 lollies every time I walk into the tea room. But if I walk into the tea room 10 times a day, that's 30 lollies.
And then you start walking there 20 times a day.
Yeah,
it's something to really, and I kind of really appreciate that you are so open and honest about your, like, how you see things, and like how you can acknowledge these bad habits. You kind of go, at the moment they're under control, but you even just said yourself, I just got to make sure they don't
get out of control,
keep going and get worse and worse. And it's like, obviously through time and experience, you know that this is a road that, if taken too long, will get you to a destination you don't really want to get to. And do you feel like that's the case?
Yeah, and I think my goal is all things in moderation.
Yeah.
And I want to be mindful. And I have, I've seen people on here talk about, throw out the scales, don't track, don't weigh, just eat mindfully. And that's my goal. Like, I want to get to that.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm not quite there yet, because I'm still a little, I'm a little bit haphazard, and I'm sort of quite easygoing. I'm like, oh, cool, I'm put on weight, so I can have another lolly,
Yeah.
And tracking for me, I know some people just hate it and it triggers them and all that. It doesn't, for me, it's actually the best thing I can do. My doctor actually said to me, you need to track. Because it actually, for me, just keeps me accountable to myself and keeps me online. And I mean, I haven't tracked for probably a month or so now, and I have literally just sort of stayed the same weight up and down a keto, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay, but mindless eating starts to slip in, where you're just going, oh, I'll see that and just grab a handful of those and one of those. And if I'm tracking, then I don't do that. And I don't want to say like there's good foods and bad foods and all that. And I think all things in moderation is a really good goal, and it's how most skinny people seem to live, all things in moderation. So my mother she was really slim and really sort of mindful, and my daughters were like that and that. But I know from how I've been, like, I didn't get to 131 kilos by eating all things in moderation. I got there by mindless eating, and I'm not like a big sort of emotional eater sitting there crying and eating. It's not really so much that for me. It's more like I just enjoy it. Like driving in the car, I like to munch on something. Watching a movie, I like to munch on something. I just enjoy it. It's just like a nice thing for me.
Yeah.
And I have to be quite aware and quite disciplined to not to do that. And just sleep really has helped me with it. But you can definitely eat more of those sort of foods than you can of the protein.
The nutrient-dense foods.
When you were saying that then, and you were talking about how like you just like the feeling, like you like, it's not like an emotional eating. I was going through that process in my own head, and I'm like, it's exactly what you were just saying. It's like I don't do it for emotional reasons. It's because almost like once you pop, you can't stop. I always think of that. Like it's like if I get a taste of something good, there's no thing in my head to say that's enough. You kind of just go, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good.
You are the worst at that too.
The worst. So I literally have to sometimes just throw things out because, again, it's something I'm trying to work on, but it's the same concept. It's like if you could be given something, like if I was to stroke your arm and it felt good, you would only want me to stop stroking your arm until it stopped feeling good.
Yeah.
But what if it never stopped feeling good? You know, that's kind of like, that's the dilemma I face is like sometimes I'll have something nice to eat and then I eat and I'm like, it still tastes good. And it never loses that effect of like tasting good.
And living with you that's the worst thing ever because I go do the grocery shop in my mind. I'm like, oh, okay, look, I'll buy a bag of lollies and I'll put them in the cupboard and then I won't even open them. Next minute I come home from work and I'll be like, Shan's left me 2 in the bottom of the packet because he's like, oh, I'm not going to eat the whole packet. I've got to leave some for a later. But I'm like, okay, like in my mind, I open something and I'm kind of, I have like, as I said, I'll go and I'll have 3, you know, so I can have 3 lollies put in the cupboard and I'll forget that they're there. But no, Shan's the kind of person that once it's there and it tastes good, you just keep going until it's not there anymore.
Like sometimes we'll have something and then I'll throw it out. There'll be stuff left in it, but rather than leaving it in the cupboard, because if I put it in the cupboard, I know I'll go back to it later. I just throw it out, put it in the bin. And like, this is like once upon a time, I would have just eaten that, no guilt. Where these days, I guess that there's a little bit of that whole guilt recognition of what is happening and what I'm doing. And then taking those steps to throw it in the bin. You know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to go from, you know, here to there overnight. And it's little changes like throwing things in the bin that I've got to just keep acknowledging and keep moving, like keep changing and just slowly get rid of it. Because if you try and cut off cold turkey, you're just it's never going to work. I've tried that in the past, you know, where you go from eating junk food to eating vegetables. It's like you could only do that for so long.
Broccoli doesn't taste as good as ice cream cake.
I'm never going to sit there and go, oh my God, I can't stop eating this broccoli. It's so delicious.
I couldn't
like,
it. Anyway.
Yeah, you're strange like that.
But Brenda, you're a singer.
Yeah.
You're a singer.
Yeah.
How have you found that your presence and your confidence on stage, has this changed dramatically since surgery?
Were you on stage before surgery? Did you get up and sing on in front of people before surgery? Talk us through that.
I'm a little bit odd in that I used to say, I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but me and my sister and my sister-in-law used to always say we had reverse anorexia because we look better than we do. Like, so I would be like, oh, I look great, you know, and I actually was I heard one of your guests a couple of weeks ago say she was in denial and she didn't realise how big she was. I was that person. Yeah. Like, I thought I looked fine. And so I'd be up there strutting around. And then I look at photos now and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at you, girl. But I felt great. It wasn't, I've lived probably, you know, most of my adult life being overweight. So I've just got used to it and I felt good. But now that I've lost the weight, I feel even better. And I probably move more, you know. I just, I'm sort of, it hasn't given me more confidence. It's just given me more movement, I think.
And have you found that I don't know if you go to the same audiences or whatever, but have you found that the reaction at all has been different, like from people in the audience, like watching you perform or listening to you perform? Have they?
Oh, yeah, they come up and say, oh, you look so good. They've probably got used to it now because I've been like this for a while now. But yeah, because it was all sort of during lockdown, and then they were like, "Oh wow, what did you do?" I just said, "Oh, I had weight loss." I'm quite open about it.
Yeah.
I was going to be all secret at the beginning, but I couldn't help myself. I told people, so everyone knows now. Yeah.
Wow. Because that's one thing.
Yeah.
Scrolling through your Instagram, and like I was doing it today, I feel like you look, I don't know, it's like looking at your before and afters, you look like you feel more comfortable. I don't know, it was really funny scrolling through that. Do you feel like when you look in the mirror now, you look at yourself differently? Do you feel like you like what you see more in the mirror?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't have a full-length mirror for years, and that's probably part of my being in denial thing. Like, I never saw my whole body because I didn't have it probably for 20 years, you know. and I got one sort of, 6 months ago because my family got sick of taking photos of my outfit. I like to take a photo of my outfit, and so now I just take it myself in the mirror. But so I haven't really sort of had the full impact of this is what you look like. But my biggest joy has been fashion. I love clothes, and I always have. And I used to be a dressmaker, and when I was young, I used to design really cool clothes and make them. And over the years, I sort of lost my love of sewing, and it just became more of what can I buy to fit me. I bet the shops that sell the plus size clothes and limited selection. And I scrubbed up okay, hair and makeup and jewellery and all that. And I always presented myself well, and I was very confident. But now I'm just loving all the things I can wear that I couldn't wear before. Like that wasn't my motivation. My motivation initially was for health. There was nothing wrong with my health, but I was very aware that I'm getting old. Like I'm 54, and I was very aware that if you just stay obese, something's going to go wrong eventually. Like your back's going to give out or your knees or something. Like I was getting a sore back, and I still do have sore knees, but at least I know now it's not in my weight.
Yeah.
So my initial motivation was health, but the byproduct has been, oh wow, I can actually wear like different clothes now that I haven't worn for years, and they look okay, and it's really fun.
I'm not going to lie, I do come to your page sometimes for little fashion tips and advice, the knotting of the different tops and that sort of thing. I've learnt quite a lot of you. You get a few DMs from me occasionally being like, hang on, how did you actually do that? It's been great.
You just reflect like a confidence. It was funny in the before and afters. It's funny how you can just see the confidence through like how you stand and how you pose and like versus the before. I don't know. I scrolled through and it was very evident throughout your feed that you just kind of reflecting a bit more of a confidence. I'm like, do you see that? Do you feel that? And that's kind of why I wanted to ask that question. Anything you've learnt throughout this process for you that you didn't know prior to surgery?
Yeah, so just going back to what you just said, I've probably just become more of a poser. Like, I wasn't a poser. I never have been a poser. Yeah. And I'm from the generation where we'd take photos and we'd wait 2 weeks to get them developed, So and I just haven't, like, my photos of, if you go through like my personal Instagram, scroll down, it's all of travel and trips and photos of my kids and maybe the odd me from like just my face, like it's with a view in the background. Like I would never take photos of my clothes and my outfits. And to me, it's been more like keeping records of how I'm going. It's like a progress. Like if I need a bit of motivation, I look through my stories and see how far I've come. And I mean, like it probably comes across to some people that I've turned into a narcissist, but I'm not really. I just am trying to keep progress.
And you're proud of how far you've come as well. Like there's nothing to be ashamed of being proud.
You should never feel like a narcissist for feeling good about yourself.
And I loved in the form you said that you loved that you're no longer the big girl anymore. You're just the tall girl, and that makes me feel so proud, like so happy, because I was the same.
You're also the tall girl.
I'm also the tall girl, and I've gone from being the big girl who used to stand at the back of the photos to hide my body. I now stand at the back of the photos because I'm so tall, or you know what I mean? Like I'm no longer the big girl. So I could totally relate to that when you said that. So yay for the tall girls.
I've been on a holiday a couple of years back, and we went out to a winery dinner, and they were all taking photos, and I was just like, I was wearing, I wasn't dressed that great, and I just took photos. I was like, oh, you guys are such posers, and I take all the photos. Whereas now I'd be like, I'd be in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I don't look, I just blend in more now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not why I did it, though. It's not. I'm sort of deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's not like my motivation wasn't vanity, if you know what I mean. But it has been a byproduct. Has been, oh wow, yeah, this is fun.
It's not so much. It's not so much your vein. I think it's just we're more aware that society's vain.
Yeah.
So it's not so much like you're sitting there and going like, I am judging myself. It's like you feel like others may be judging you, and that's more what holds us back from being like, hey.
And there's nothing shameful about it either. We all have lived our life in the background. Oh, well, not all of us, but we have all, there's at some point in time, we've all stood behind someone, always all stood out of a photo. Like I said it on my post the other day at my friend's wedding. Like I've said to people in the past that I don't want to be a bridesmaid for them because I didn't want to ruin their wedding photos. Like, which is really sad. Like I know that that's not the case, but that's how we all viewed ourselves. So hey, if I'm gonna stand next to the bride on her wedding day and be proud about it, damn, I'm gonna post about it. You know what I mean? Like we've all hidden from at one point in our life. You got to be proud about how far you've come. Like I didn't go into this surgery for vanity reasons either, but as you said, it's a byproduct, and it's I'm proud of how far I've come.
Yeah, we can feel more comfortable in our skin because not so much because we're judging ourselves, but because we feel like now no one else is judging us, and that was a huge thing for me. Used to hold me back.
Yeah. I was not very loved and accepted at any site. Like when I was big, I felt loved and accepted then. But I don't know, and I loved and accepted myself too. But I don't know, it's just sort of fun now. Like it's fun dressing up and trying different. Like I've just ordered some bootleg jeans because like wide legs and flares are all coming back in, you know. And I'm going, well, last time they were in, I was really fat. The time before in the 70s, I was a child. So I'm going to wear them and I'm going to rock them and I'm going to look at them.
Yeah.
Damn straight. I love the flares. Ask Shannon. He hates them on me, but I bloody love flares. So.
So is there anything you've learnt throughout this process, like in the 14 months since you've had surgery? 14 months, was that right? 15 months, that you didn't know prior to surgery?
Probably when you talk about ghrelin before, like I've never heard of ghrelin.
True.
Is that what you say?
Yeah, ghrelin, yeah.
Not that I don't even think it overly works for me because I still felt hungry, but that was like a completely new thing I'd never heard of. And the other thing that I had no idea of is that there was this whole community of weight loss surgery people. Like, it's like a whole world opens up to you.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about that. I mean, I didn't know, the only person I knew of that had weight loss surgery was Simone Anderson in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And then, another girl I knew, she was really great. So we messaged a bit and she talked to me about hers and she had really successful in New Zealand. And then those two ladies that I bumped into in the Facebook group. But apart from them, I'd never met anyone.
Yeah.
And now you sort of tell people and they go, oh, yeah, my sister had that. And like there's this whole community of people out there that support and encouraged, and it's great.
There's so many that you would not even know of too, because obviously we're just dealing with the social media side of things and like Instagram and Facebook. But like even the other day I was at like this timber yard and this guy was like, oh, did you buy this business? And I was like, no, always been mine. He goes, oh, what happened to the bigger guy? And I'm like, oh, that was me. And he's like, he goes, no. And he's like, what happened? And I was like, oh, I had weight loss surgery 3 years ago and lost like 90 kilos, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, wow. Oh, it's so funny. Like, I know my brother-in-law had weight loss surgery and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So there's all these people out there that don't do the social media thing that have also had bariatric surgery.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, you're right. I didn't know anything about like bariatric surgery until I pretty much had it. And now I'm just like, there's so many people out there that are having it. And some share it, some don't.
They talk about 60 degrees of separation, but I honestly think with the bariatric community, I think it's almost like 2 or 3 degrees of separation. It's becoming more and more common that most people now know somebody who has had it done. Like it's just... I had somebody reach out the other day on, I can't remember if it was my personal Instagram or if it was on BARI BANTER Instagram, just saying like, thank you so much for sharing your journey, because being alone in this process it's really nice to know that there's somebody that we can like reach out to. And I said, if you're reaching out to us on social media, you're part of the community, therefore you're part of the family, and you're definitely not doing it alone. And I think that's the best thing about the weight loss community, is that you'll always find somebody, even if you are doing it alone, so to speak, you're a single mom or you live by yourself or you don't know anyone else that's had it. Reaching out to people within the community means that you are not doing it alone.
Well, it's also very helpful to have that wealth of information out there, whether it's good information or bad information. Information gives you a certain comfort at heart as well. When you're entering into a realm where your mum and your dad or whoever it is may not know a lot about it, having someone that might be able to give you information, good or bad, is still gives you a sense of peace and comfort.
I don't have massive following on Instagram or anything, but I'm always saying, if people want encouraging, I would encourage them. I'm there if anyone wants to talk or ask questions or anything. Not that I'm an expert, but I don't know, especially for I don't feel like many older people sort of it seems to be a lot of younger people, and I reckon there's probably I've had a few messages just from ladies who who I don't know, who've just asked me questions, and they've been some of them been a bit older too, and they said, "Oh, I'm a little bit nervous, and can I ask you a question?" So I love that. I'm always but I was going to say, just talking about just made me think before. I think in New Zealand it's not quite so. I think it's becoming more common in New Zealand now, because I think it hasn't been probably as, because we don't have. You have insurance, say, the Aussies in Thailand, they were talking about how they got it off their insurance, but we don't really seem to have. I think if you pay for something cost, you can get $3,000 or something, which a lot of people don't have. Something like I don't have it. It's really expensive. To go on the public, like I paid for mine privately, I wasn't considered. I couldn't have gone public even if I'd wanted to, because I left with a BMI of 40, I think it is, and mine was 38. But yeah, I don't know. It seems to be more. It seems to be more widely spread in Australia. Maybe it's because you've got more people. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, you guys also. You need another podcast back in New Zealand now. The Bariatric Grind. Those girls have called it quits. I used to enjoy that. Yeah, I used to enjoy that. They've called it quits. So you guys need to find another podcast. Another New Zealand podcast.
Yeah, I met Emma. We had lunch one day, me and Emma. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's
really
great.
Amazing. Yeah.
She's another one that I reach out to quite frequently for fashion advice.
Yeah. I was shocked when that happened, because I enjoyed those girls doing that, and I think it was really good. As a lot of people in Australia go, it's great to have an Australian podcast. And I think in New Zealand, it was nice for you guys to have your own Bariatric podcast where you could, listen in each week and hear from other people within the community and stuff like that. Because I think it's a good little tool for the Bariatric community.
Having said that, what's next for Brenda? Are you going to start your own podcast or?
Well, my sister's she's like a communicator. She does speaking and singing, and she talks on does a lot of stuff on mental health. Her and I've often said, "Oh, we should do one," because she's Julia Grace and I'm Brenda Joy, and we could call it Grace and Joy or Joy and Grace or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
I said, why don't we just do a live one day and see if anyone watches us do?
Yeah.
But,
I think it's I think the more the merrier. I think it's a great way to get a more accurate story. I feel like I get to learn about Brenda more through a podcast, because it's usually, I don't crop these a lot now. Like I used to take all ums and ahs, but it's like an unfiltered version of your story, and you kind of get a more detailed information, I think. So I think, if anyone's out there and they want to start their own podcast, reach out to, whoever it is, like me or a leader, if you want to know, please
reach out to
do.
Shan. I don't know much about podcasts. I just sit here and talk.
But never feel like you're treading on anyone's toes by starting it out. I honestly think more the merrier. If you want to start your own podcast, I think it's a great little concept. I think it's a great way to kind of get more information out there. But yeah, apart from that, what else is...
Sorry, there's this lady in New Zealand. Can I give a little shout out?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So, you should honestly get her on the show. Beck's Finding Balance.
Yes, we follow each other.
Yeah, Beck's Finding Balance. And she's just had all her skin removal surgery, and she's really, she's great. She's awesome.
Yeah,
she's really inspired me.
We might reach out to her.
There's heaps more.
Yeah.
There's heaps more that I could mention, but she's just one that I've just thought of. Yeah.
Yeah. So what else is next for Brenda? Like what's your goals going forward? what are you hoping to achieve?
What with my weight?
Anything. Well, what is next for Brenda? Like, what is? It could be weight related. It could just be life related. It could be, you've got your sights set on a new song you want to sing, or
yeah. I've been in my job for about 7 months now. It's quite a different role from I had before, but I'm definitely wanting to like smash goals at my job. It's sort of a sales role, and I'm definitely want to sort of succeed more in that. I want to travel more when I can.
So
somehow.
Australia, maybe?
Yeah, I wanted to go to Melbourne, but I'm so glad I didn't now because it's all shut down again, in Melbourne.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I would like to get to my goal weight. Like I'm currently like, I don't know, what am I, 96 kilos or something, and I set my goal at 87.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be good to get there. The trouble is that I feel okay now, and I probably look okay now at this weight, and so the motivation isn't as strong as it was to keep losing. But that's okay, it'll happen. I'm not like beating myself up about it. So I guess probably my biggest goal is to never get fat again.
Yeah.
That's a good goal.
That's a good goal.
That's a very good goal. Very relatable.
Health goal. Yeah, like my health goal. Do well on my job. Just carry on plodding along. Yeah, but health wise and weight wise, definitely. So not go back.
Yeah,
I just can't.
Focus on those little habits to keep you going forward. I guess it's all about just like we talked about before, just acknowledgement of certain things within your lifestyle. And the biggest thing I've ever learnt was atomic habits. Like at the end of the day, little changes make the biggest results. So if you do have like a goal in mind, just rather than going gun ho, big changes, sometimes it's those little changes. Like having half a cookie a day. That might make all the difference, whatever it is. It's sometimes you don't have to cut things out all completely, and you can just make a little change. Take quarter of the cookie out. I'm using cookies here a lot, but those little changes sometimes equal the biggest results.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to have got to my goal by my 1 year anniversary because I know, and I don't compare myself to other people, but just an observation is that a lot of people do get there by their 1 year anniversary, and I didn't. But if I could get there by my 2 year anniversary or even by Christmas or something, that'd be all right. That'd be good.
Yeah, maybe don't. Like, at the end of the day, you look, like, the way you're just portraying how you feel, you've smashed all your goals. Like, a number shouldn't define your idea of being successful. Like, I look at you and I think you're very successful at this bariatric surgery. You're glowing, you just carry yourself more confidently.
If you hadn't have said that you hadn't reached goal, I wouldn't have even questioned it.
I would have thought you went above and beyond any goal that you may have set, because looking at you, you look phenomenal. So,
and you carry yourself really well, and you definitely, you portray yourself as definitely one of the successes. So I really hope that you don't think that you haven't been a success just because you haven't gotten to that number on the scale, because you're definitely.
No, I feel like I have done really well, and that's probably why I am sort of so chilled about it. It's like, I know, girl, you've done really well. You've done so well. Like I do. And if I did lose, because I am still like, the last 8 kilos is probably just sitting around my middle, and you probably wouldn't know. I've probably done the bulk of the weight. Like, you probably wouldn't notice a huge change now if I did lose that.
Yeah.
And it could possibly even come off my face and make me look gaunt, and I might be better off just to stay like this. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't mind trying to see what it looks like. I might end up sort of losing 8 and maybe putting 5 back on, but I just wanted to get below 90.
Yeah. I know what those little goals are. At the end of the day, it may only be a number for some people, but for you, it's just kind of achieving it.
Yeah.
I
get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. I've changed shapes, though. That's the weird thing, that it's been really, really unusual.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, when I was like my sort of young slim weight was 85, and even that was bizarre, because back then, I'm sitting back in the 80s. I went to both Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, and they both told me I should be 75. So back when I got to 85, and I went to Jenny Craig's and got to 85 because I was about 100 for my wedding. I never felt like I'd got there. I always felt like I wasn't enough, and I failed because I wasn't 75. So if I could have it over again, I would just be like, yeah, I'm 85 kilos. I'm just going to stay like this forever. And I could have learned how to maintain it. So I never learned how to maintain. So I never felt like I got to my goal. Wow. So that's why I set my weight, my goal originally at 85. And then a few months ago, I changed to 87. I thought, no, I'd be happy just to be under 90. Yeah. But back then I was, I was sort of like, I was slim, but I wasn't skinny, but I was always sort of quite pear-shaped. I sort of changed shape. I'm like, my legs slimmer than they were then, and my top bigger than I was then. I'm a different shape than I was, but I'm quite happy with it. Doesn't matter.
I think you've done amazing, Brenda, and honestly, thank you so much for coming on and sitting down with us and giving your perspective on this process, because honestly, it's been a lot of great talking points and a lot of points of just thinking. And I think that's what this episode is going to bring to a lot of people is kind of, you acknowledging certain habits and how it's affecting, where you're at. I think will make other people sit there and go, maybe I do that. And that's what this is all about. It's all about just getting people to ask the questions and
change
educate
their thoughts
themselves and understand things, because at the end of the day, we're all learning. No matter where you are in your process, you can always learn more to get you further along. So, and
if anybody ever wants to reach out to Brenda and have a chat, your inbox is always open, I'm presuming.
Yeah, so. And it's Brenda, just so we can clarify this, Brenda, is it double underscore or single underscore?
I think it's Brenda's _joy, isn't it?
Yeah, so one underscore. I was trying to see if it was one or two. Brenda's _joy. If you want to reach out to her, she's more than happy to have a chat. Also, just quickly, we did get a message the other day about the audio quality with the phone conversations and stuff like that. I just want to acknowledge I do see these messages, and I am working on it. If there's anyone out there who's an audio expert and wants to give us a way to make it a little bit clearer and crisper, I'm always happy to take it. Hopefully one day we can get to a point where we can have these guests in person, because that would make my life a lot easier.
Cool.
Because obviously talking over phone isn't ideal because the audio quality may not be the best, but we're working on it. Work in progress.
Pretty cool that we can connect to somebody in New Zealand.
Brenda's chilling in a lounge room and we're having a chat to her.
You just say the word. I'll fly over.
That would be amazing.
Dear COVID, please go away so we can get Brenda here in person.
We would love to get to a point where we can actually sit down with people.
You come and see me.
We will.
Cool.
Definitely. Well, awesome. Thanks.
Well, yes, that is another episode of Barry Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.